The war on Ukraine arguably marked the real beginning of the confrontation, the struggle between, on one hand, the West, led by the United States, and on the other side, China. Yes, the struggle was there in the past 3-5 years. We discussed in the previous episode that it is a struggle and not just a mere opposition or a mere confrontation. It is a real struggle, and that is between grand powers. And why Ukraine marked the real beginning of that struggle? Because it involves grand powers. Russia on one side and the West on the other side, led by the US, and of course incorporating the European Union. Such military effectively, but of course politically and economic and even cultural confrontation between grand powers is the very first time it happens since the end of the Cold War in 1990-1991. So it's over 30 years since such a major confrontation between grand powers. And that's why the war on Ukraine marks a real turning point, a real beginning of this struggle between the US on one side and China on the other. The other reason that today, 2023, and the coming few years is such a turning point, such a beginning, is that the entire order that was there in the world, more or less prevailing since the end of the Second World War in 1945, is being challenged, not just by Russia, also by China and a number of other countries, such as Iran and also others. Challenged here is not just an ideological challenge. So it's not just that the idea of the free world, the liberal democratic system, free markets, and all of the different institutions associated with that, the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund, the World Trade Organization, and others, all of that is being challenged not just ideologically by a number of countries, primarily led by China, but also it is being challenged pragmatically. So we do have China leading the creation of a number of new institutions, such as the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, such as the entire initiative of the Belt and Road Initiative, which is effectively the new Silk Road, and other initiatives being developed. The new Development Bank, for example, led by a number of countries, China, Russia, South Africa, Brazil. All of these institutions, ideas, initiatives, effectively are potential alternatives to the institutions, to the instruments that were there behind the order that prevailed in the world. Some would say has prevailed, because it's still there, since the end of the Second World War in 1945. The third reason the current moment, 2023, and the few coming years is a turning point, is that in addition to the struggle between the grand powers, in almost every region in the world we have the emergence of regional powers that also want parts of the pie, want to exert influence over the shaping of the new order that will emerge in the coming few years. So we have Iran, we have Saudi Arabia, of course we have India, South Africa, Brazil, and some would say others. The existence of such regional players is of immense importance because it adds another layer to the confrontation, another layer to the global struggle. A fourth point why the current moment is a turning point is that at the heart of the change, at the heart of the challenge to the order that was there, and at the heart of the struggle between the US and behind it the West, and China, and behind it a number of other countries, and of course Russia, is that we have also a struggle between ideologies, some would say between feelings. People who want to preserve the moment. Of course, the US at the core of that, people who want for ideas, feelings, desires, wants, that do want to preserve the world that was there since the end of the Cold War in 1990, 1991, and desires, wants, feelings that want to change all of that, that want to take hold of the moment, grasp it, and create out of it a new order that fits their own desires, their own want for their own rise. Some will say this is a manifestation of the clash of civilizations that Samuel Huntington, the very famous professor at Harvard that wrote this paper in Foreign Affairs magazine and then turned into a very influential book in the early 1990s about a clash of civilizations. Irrespective whether we see the current moment and the coming decade or decades as a clash of civilizations, certainly there is a clash of desires, of feelings behind this struggle. So it's not just geostrategy, it's not just geoeconomic, it is also a clash of ideologies, and behind the ideologies, desires. Very different feelings for how people see the past 20, 30 years. I am not a big fan of the idea of or the world order, but there's certainly the emergence of a new world order. But if one, like me, is not really interested or not a big fan of that moment, we can think of the current moment as effectively the birth of a new landscape, a new international landscape in which the global scene will be very different. Because of all of these reasons, the current moment, 2023, and the coming few years are a true moment of transition, a true moment of a beginning of this global struggle.